Hello and welcome back, welcome to this channel. I'm grateful to each of you for surrendering some of your time to listen to Dhamma, and I want only that you will gain some benefit, some insight, and strengthen your practice. This booklet and these Dhamma talks have the sole purpose of strengthening your practice, not increasing your intellectual or philosophical understanding of Buddha's teachings. I've been forgetting to mention that there is a web page and a Facebook page under the name Madrone Mountain Meditation. If you like more information about the teacher, you are welcome to check out that website, that Facebook page. Okay, today we're on page 42. 41 was a description of something called ignorance. The Pali word is avidya. The important takeaway, I hope, was avidya isn't actually something. It doesn't have a reality other than in our imagination. Like the child imagining there's a boogeyman in the closet when it's trying to fall asleep at night. Everyone we know who's not fully enlightened imagines that they're a person and that there's evil in the world and good in the world and so on and so on. Avidya, that is the work of avidya. That is what avidya's success looks like. You ask, there's about 8 billion of us on the planet, and you ask 7.999% of them, are they a person? And they're going to say yes. They have a culture, they have a language, they have a country, they have a diet, they have the way they dress, they have religious and political beliefs, they have family, friends, neighbors, etc. And all of those things reinforce, and in the unenlightened mind, guarantee, listen, I'm a person. So, and I have these qualities and values and personality traits to prove it. When we become in touch with Nibbana and we walk the path that leads to Nibbana, that sense of self is weakened and weakened and weakened gradually, very seldom all at once. And finally, we wake up from the dream. So we're just finishing the talk about avidya at the top of page 42. Avidya. When avidya is utterly disbanded, the entire mass of dukkha is disbanded, and that which knows that avidya is disbanded is the pure one. It's Buddha nature, it's pure mind, it's nibbana. Dukkha, as you remember, is suffering. It's what happens once we have accepted the delusion of being a person, and it's part of the trilogy of anicca, constant change, dukkha, impermanence, insubstantiality, and ultimately non-self, anatta. So, in other words, the defeat of avidya, the elimination of it, the disbanding of it, what's left? If avidya doesn't exist anymore, what's left? And the answer is pure mind. Pure mind. And that pure mind has always been there. It's been, you might say, waiting. Anyway, it's been it's an option. It's always been just what it is. And when we clear away the muck and the growth, the plant life from a pond, that is covering this beautiful, crystal clear, refreshing water called the pure mind. That's what we see. We never actually purify the mind in the literature. That's how it's talked about. We need to purify the mind. We don't. We just need to remove the stuff that is blocking, inhibiting, covering the mind and preventing us to see things as they are. So the second step in this dependent origination, these are the steps that result in our being a being. These first steps are potentialities. They are the architecture of becoming later on. It's like if you want to build a house, you have first the idea, I want to build a house. Then you have ideas of what you want the house to look like, and consequently that involves the building materials, the size, the shape, orientation, neighborhood, on and on and on. So that's what we're talking about here. We've started with ignorance, avidya. That is the creator God that starts the process of becoming with the idea, with these following ideas. And this second step is sankhara. And here the definition is volitional formations, karmic formations, concocting, composing, fabricating, embellishing, all conditioned things. If it's a thing, it's conditioned. It's conditioned by the laws of anicca and dukkha and non-self. If it's a universe, a galaxy, a solar system, a planet, if it's a plant on a planet, a human being, if it's a molecule, if it's an atom, it's conditioned. It's conditioned that it's in a constant state of flux. We can't depend on it, partly because it's in a state of flux, and partly because we haven't understood its nature. And whatever it is, it doesn't have a self. So these karmic, these mental formations, that's what the mind does. That's its job. It's created to fabricate a belief that is simply not true. Now these first three steps, the next one is going to be consciousness. These are the factors that must be put in place in order for there to eventually be something called a being. And in this case, we'll be talking about a human being. So this ability, this potentiality to concoct, to compose, to fabricate, to embellish, that is laid down in the blueprint of what it's going to be like to eventually be a human being. So here's a quote from Lord Buddha. The sankharas put together what is put together, bodily, verbally, and mentally. So if you have a thought, that's a sankhara. If you have an emotion, that's a sankhara. If you speak, that's a sankhara. The thoughts and speech, as I've just said, are sankharas. If there's a body, Then it's composed of atoms, ultimately of atoms, and then all the things that science tells us it has. All sankharas. They do not constitute a person. They do not, therefore, constitute, this is me, this is mine, this belongs to me. I know people who say, what about when I study Dhamma? What about when I'm contemplating Dhamma? I'm using sati to investigate the pure Dhamma. Is that sankhara? Yes, it is. It's all sankhara. If it comes into existence, it's a sankhara. And nibbana, there's no thinking there. There's, I'm not going to talk about it. Buddha didn't, so certainly I'm not going to. But if we are having experiences, whatever form they may take, that's a sankhara. Sankhara. The forces and factors that fashion things, physical and mental, and it's the process of fashioning and fabricating. So I think I've just said that. There's this potentiality, I don't know the best word to use, a possibility, a kind of blueprint, a foundation of possibility that then expresses itself as a thought or as even a physical body or a physical thing. Thought formations in the mind, okay, that's not a full sentence, but if we have thoughts, we can call them sankharas, even if they're thoughts of goodness and truth and compassion, goodwill, etc. It's a sankhara, so long as we believe it's happening to us, or that it originated with us, or that we are the doer. We're the one being compassionate. We're the one who's helping this other being who needs our help. Those are all fabrications that fall under the definition of sankhara. Here's a little more. Sankhara. Well, the forces and factors that fashion things physical and mental, the formations in the mind. I'm sorry I'm repeating myself. However, you still need to use the arising and passing end of sankharas as a means of getting rid of the genuine kilesa, which is avidya. So I touched on that a moment ago. There is a proper, healthy, wholesome use of consciousness of the mind to investigate itself, to question, analyze, investigate the nature of the mind as taught to us by Lord Buddha's Dhamma. So in this tradition, we are not trying to stop all thoughts. We're not trying to meditate and get to a place where consciousness more or less disappears. Those are the 8 jhanas, including the third and fourth of the first 4 jhanas, where you go into a state of being that you come out of and later can reflect on, but you're not thinking about it during the time you're in that state. In the forest monk tradition, those states of being are not conducive to the insight and wisdom that results in ultimate liberation, the liberation from the wheel of rebirth. So in this tradition, we're stressing insight meditation and not mental places where there's an absence of thought. And in order to defeat avidya, we must use the mind to investigate itself. Most of the time, throughout our day, the mind is fabricating whatever it's fabricating at that time, and we're not conscious of it, we're not watching, we're not putting a stop to it by being the one who knows. We more or less use sati when we sit and meditate. The mind quiets enough, hopefully, that we can begin to contemplate Dhamma teachings, and then we more or less forget to do that when we're driving or any number of activities that we perform during the day. Our goal is to be mindful throughout the day from a Dhamma point of view, to constantly be questioning and challenging whatever thought and emotion has arisen to the level of consciousness. We need to know it, we need to be right there, we need to witness it, and we need to understand its nature and to let it go. Now we move on. There's a typo in the book. It says number 2 again, and it should say number 3. Vijnana, or consciousness. There's this word is used to describe several different ways in which consciousness works. So it can be a little confusing because we use the word to mean the consciousness we have when we're having our daily, ordinary, mundane life experience. And we also use it for the word that watches, the one who knows, that watches this consciousness that is engaged in, captivated by our everyday experience. So let's see what some of the definitions are. Cognizance, the act of taking note of sense data and the ideas as they occur. We're going to see a little later, so I'm not going to talk about it right this moment, but I'm debating with myself how much to talk about vijnana right now, because we're going to really cover it in a page or two. Anyway, it just means consciousness. It's being aware of what's going on. It's also being aware that we are aware of what's going on. Vijnana, conscious acknowledgement of phenomena as they arise and cease. It is the consciousness as condition of the citta. So I had just said sati is this mindful awareness as things arise, and it's important when they cease. So it's witnessing the nature of anatta, anicca, arising and passing, arising and passing, arising and passing. This is happening with sounds we hear, including the sound of this voice, anything that we're looking at. That consciousness of looking arises and passes, arises and passes. It does this with great rapidity. It does it so quickly we can't distinguish any gap between it. One image is old-fashioned film used in movies. The movie portrays some movement in the very smoothly. The car goes from point A to point B. But if you stop the movie and hold up the film to the light, you see it's many frames of the picture that are needed, that constitute the image that the car moves smoothly, or the hand moves smoothly, or the person walks smoothly. It's actually multiple images combining, but our eye doesn't see those images when we're watching the movie, and our consciousness doesn't see the rising and passing away of contact with the world through the five senses either, because it happens so quickly. So this also says sense, data, and ideas. So it's all six senses. Ideas arise and pass away just the same as the five sense doors making contact with the world. Vijnana, conscious acknowledgement of phenomena as they arise and cease. It is the consciousness as condition of the chitta. So the chitta is usually defined as the mind. I've mentioned before, the mind has these incredible capabilities, and one of them is this consciousness that knows when things are arising and passing away. Vijnana, consciousness, being that which contacts and acknowledges all kinds of things. So we make contact through the five sense doors with anything that is in the world. We also make contact with ideas and emotions mentally. So in this case, that requires consciousness. If a mosquito is buzzing around our ear when we're asleep, we don't hear it. Consciousness doesn't arise, even though the ear may be vibrating with the air molecules created by the sound of the insect's wings, but we don't make conscious contact with that sound, and therefore we're deaf in that moment. Sankhara and Vijnana are parts or aspects of the chitta, whereas the function of them is to project situation and appearances outward into the world as if in the world. Okay, let's take that piece by piece. Sankhara, that's the fabricating, and Vijnana, that's knowing that we're fabricating, are parts or aspects of the bigger thing called mind, chitta. Whereas the function of them is to project situations and appearances outward into the world, or as if in the world. This is extremely important. Whatever is going on in your mind in reaction to an experience you're having in the world, the simple experience of listening to this voice, cooking a meal, bathing, watching TV, whatever it is, sankharas and consciousness on its basis in the secular world, the way the mind works in the secular world, is to create the feeling, the belief that it's happening in the world. But in reality, that is, reality means that which is real, it's happening in the mind. So we often hear in everyday speech, so-and-so is projecting. So-and-so calls another person a bad name or criticizes them in some way. And that we say, oh, he's just projecting. Actually, that person or that situation isn't as he says it is. It's just his interpretation. And so he's putting his stuff out and into the world. This is the law of nature. This is what we're all doing all the time. The world is whatever is going on within our mind in the present moment. If we think we see something on the news that upsets us, we say that news story is upsetting. No, it's just a news story. Someone else finds it laughable. Somebody else finds it entertaining. Somebody else likes it and supports it. So the news story, and that means every event that comes into our awareness, is actually neutral. Then we color it with our opinion, our likes and our dislikes, or our neutrality. So this need to change the world arises from the belief that there's something wrong with it, that it shouldn't be the way that it is, and that we're responsible for changing it. Now, please don't misunderstand. I have Buddha, and certainly I have no objection to the people who volunteer, who get involved in situations and advocate for change. That's just great. That's great. That's certainly how social change comes about. But we're talking about, what we're trying to understand is, what is the nature of the way this mind that I call me works, and trying to wake up to the fact that I am constantly projecting the content of my mind onto the world. And the first step is for me to withdraw that need to project what's going on internally in my mind onto the world. We know people who suffer from mental illness. There's so many names for it now, but schizophrenics, one name that occurs to me, they see the world as a completely different place than a healthy-minded person sees it. And there's a lot of paranoia and fear and anger and reactions that are completely self-made. They come entirely out of avidya, ignorance of the way things actually are. So we must find those examples in the way our mind is working. Otherwise, these words we've just said, avidya, sankhara, vijnana, it's just some jargon. It's actually nothing more than air molecules vibrating based on certain frequencies created by the vibration of vocal cords. So we can't watch if we don't have sati, and our sati won't be awake enough, constant enough, if we haven't quieted the mind through meditation. Now we're going to move on to number 4. We're also, I try to keep these around 30 minutes, since I don't know people's interest or ability to stay focused, so try to keep them shorter. Nama Rupa. So the definition is mind and matter. So body and mind, that's another way to talk about it. Here's name and form, or mentality and physicality. And the union of mental phenomena and physical phenomena that link the 5 aggregates, we're going to find out what those are on page 43, that constitute life. So, briefly, it's our five senses and the form that the body takes. If we're in good health and fortunate, we have all of our limbs and fingers and our organs are working properly, and our sense organs, seeing, smelling, tasting, etc., if we're very fortunate, they're working properly. And in order to know they're working at all, there has to be consciousness. So Nama Rupa is one Pali language for talking about that there is something called a form and there's something called consciousness. And when the two unite, there can be consciousness of the form. In Theravada Buddhism, Buddha distinguishes consciousness in what he calls a being, and the consciousness that doesn't rise to the level that can be thought of as a being. So in Theravada Buddhism, there are life forms that we call animals, from single-celled animals all the way up to the most complex as beings, but plant life, mountains, rivers, trees, etc., whatever level of consciousness there may be there, it's different. It's not as sophisticated and doesn't have the same potentials for self-awareness that a being, a conscious being has. So we've reached the bottom of the page. I'm grateful to each of you. I know I say this every time, but I am grateful to those of you who get to the end of the page and who may benefit either in the short term or the long term. These are all seeds that we're planting as we listen to Dhamma. We're actually planting seeds, and with our practice of meditation and mindfulness, we're nurturing those seeds, and we can be certain they're going to bear fruit when the conditions are right for that. So thank you for your attention, and I hope you gain benefit and become a blessing to the world and to yourself. Thank you very much.